Welcome to Turkey.
Dünyamız, bölgemiz,
I deem TRTWorld Forum as a very fruitful platform for discussions involving our world, our region, and our country, and I hope and pray that this gathering will yield the most auspicious results. TRTWorld Forum is celebrating its third anniversary this year, and it is taking Herculean steps forward in order to find concrete solutions to global problems, and it is becoming an increasingly prestigious platform for our region and for the rest of the world. Opinion leaders of dissenting opinions, members of the academia, and politicians from four corners of the world are partaking in this union. And for the next 2 days, open and closed sessions will be conducted whereby the participants will be able to handle several discussions leading to the production of relevant reports. And the findings in the reports and suggestions for prospective solutions will be shared with the rest of the world. This year, the topic of this gathering is globalization in retreat, risks and opportunities. And I think this meeting will be very inspirational to shedding a light on the developments around politics, economy, and social relations. We're going through a difficult time in history where we are experiencing an array of global depressions, and I attach great significance to any opportunity, in order to explore a prospective solution to problems that are of concern to us all, whereby we can talk, discuss, and elaborate. In order to establish democracy and justice, we need to bring together different voices from all around the world, from different walks of life, in order to flourish a very liberated environment for debate. Some people previously confirmed their participation in this forum, but then after the initiation of the Peace Spring offensive, they have cancelled their presence. And I think they are missing out on a huge opportunity by doing so. I believe those who have cancelled their appearance here on this platform due to the initiation of the Operation Peace Spring that was conducted by Turkey in order to eradicate the terrorist presence right on our border, and they are finding difficult to digest democracy, and they are directly or indirectly supporting terrorism. And I think these types are no longer in need to defend themselves by saying they're against terrorism. If they are against terrorism, well, this is the platform that avails itself to you, whereby you can stand up and share with the rest of the world that you are against terrorism. You can prove your stance. I think their stance is not democratic, and it's not in compliance with any value or any ethical conduct whatsoever, because on this forum, many opinions and many ideas and many walks of life wander around. But I would like to thank those who have been participating in this forum since the beginning for their principled stance and their candor. And I also would like to take this opportunity to thank the executives of TRT for organizing this momentous event in a very successful fashion. Ladies and gentlemen, almost at the turn of every century, the world is going through a very deeply rooted transformation. On the one hand of this transformation, you will find suffering, destruction, and tyranny and injustice. But on the other hand, on the other side of this equilibrium, you will see another erection, another resurrection, and another form of prosperity. What matters most to the communities is to decide on which side of this transition and transformation they will stand. And we value the countries according to their choices, according to their preferences in the face of such a transformation. In this geography where Turkey is present, we have been experiencing these ups and downs all throughout the ages. The greatest civilizations of the human race, cultures, ideas, and masterpieces were created on these lands and spread to the rest of the world. And again, the greatest suffering of the human race emerged out of the conflicts on these lands or as a result of the provocation coming from outside. For the last couple of centuries, the center of the world seems to have shifted slightly, but the axis of conflict is found here in this part of the world. And when that is the case, indispensably, our country gets located right at the epicenter of this array of developments. But quite frankly, the history of the Turks in the Anatolian lands dates back to a longer time in history than anticipated. Our absolute political sovereignty in Anatolia dates back to the massacred battle of 1071, reaching more than 1,000 years. The Anatolian Selçukian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and then the Turkish Republic were established, whereby we've witnessed this uninterrupted process of prevalence, and we have witnessed some of the most significant challenges in the making. In the world order that was established in the aftermath of the First World War, the Turkish nation and the Turkish state was not bestowed with a position whatsoever. This state was confined within the boundaries of Anatolia, and we were significantly cornered politically, economically, and militarily, and this was something that we were expected to suffice with. But of course, this was not something that we could admit to as the Turkish nation. The agreement that was reached in Lausanne in the aftermath of our War of Independence laid the foundation of the minimum of the conditions that we could agree to, such as the War of Independence that garnered its shape in the cities Samsun, Erzurum, Sivas, and Ankara. We have reached a new way of existence by drawing our national borders from scratch. Of course, we have to take into consideration the conditions and the circumstances that were at play during those times, and it is upon the historians to elaborate on these very significant and transforming dynamics. So our obligation today is to produce new visions and new objectives for our entire nation that is in full compliance with our presence on the Anatolian lands dating back to a millennia. Ladies and gentlemen, when we look back in time, this is what we observe taking place in this geography. Other than a couple of countries in this region, like Turkey, those who have triumphed as a result of battles, who have gained their independence and sovereignty as a result of waging battles, the rest seems to be unhappy in continuous suffering and weakness. The financial power that is introduced through natural gas and oil resources, the vast size of the land, or the size of their demographies, were inadequate to change this fact. We are clearly observing the fact that the states whose borders were drawn instead of battles but around tables on maps using rulers cannot be acknowledged and recognized as real states. We have once again observed that sovereignty and independence is a result of a devoted struggle, battle, triumph, which can be won with the strength and the power of commitment, daring to die in the making, instead of waiting some others to hand this over to you. This is what makes us different from the rest of the countries in this region. We have paid a hefty price in gaining our independence and sovereignty, and we are continuously paying a hefty price in order to preserve our sovereignty. Instead of Orientalist boundaries and Orientalist perspectives to tackle with the Turkish reality, we need to resort to this new and profound perspective of understanding what history has made of us. Or else we will indispensably find ourselves in misleading equilibriums. The recent developments we have been observing are very current examples that these equilibriums are on the brink of collapse. I would like to once again state clearly, without leading to misunderstanding, Turkey has got nothing to do with the territorial integrity of any countries, and we are not running after the interests and the expectations of any nation whatsoever. The developments that we have recently seen in Syria and in the Eastern Mediterranean are confirming developments. Any other allegation, any other statement would be deemed as a great insult to us. We are not only preserving and protecting our sovereignty, but we're also protecting the rights and the fundamental liberties of all of our brothers and sisters and their future around the world. We have never been colonialists, we have never been imperialists, and in our history there never lied any massacre, any genocide, or any destruction whatsoever, and we have no inspirations and no hidden agendas whatsoever. Everybody in Syria, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Libya, in Africa, in the Balkans might be following their own hidden agendas, but we have none as such. We are just unified in our common destiny with our brothers and sisters. This is a great virtue that those who believe a drop of oil is much more valuable than a drop of blood. This is the stance that should be expected out of the grandchildren of Yunus Emre and Rumi. And we will never be drawn into the midst of their own depression and their own suffering. We will keep on calling tyranny, tyranny, oppression as oppression. We will call a terrorist for what they stand for, and we will always stand against injustice and inequality. And we will keep up the struggle, we will keep up the battle, believing that the price that we pay will be honoring our labels as if they were honorary medals. Ever since we took over the office about 17 or 18 years ago, we have been fighting terrorist organizations, and we've refrained from getting around the table in order to negotiate with them. And this is something that we will never do. Similarly, we will never negotiate with terrorists. We shall never sit down with terrorists. Some others might do. And we are not even concerned, slightest bit. But this is a clear demonstration as to where fighting terrorism internationally has come to be. You are defending fighting terrorism on the one hand side, and on the other side you are going to embrace terrorists in every aspect possible. You are going to spoil them in such a way that, please consider, in the northern part of Syria, 30,000 trucks were transporting equipment, ammunition, and armored vehicles using Iraqi territory. And how would you be able to explain this trade if you were to claim that you were the biggest power in the world? Do you think this is a part of our democracy claims? Do you think this is a part of international law and international rules of engagement? No, they are non-compliant. Nobody can claim that they are in compliance with international law and rules of engagement. But we will keep on repeating these facts for what they are, and we will never be silenced. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the era where technology and communication developed at an unprecedented rate, and we can never denounce globalization, and we will never fall in the trap of self-deception. Instead, what we need to do is to embrace globalization and use the opportunities that this era avails in order to build up a brighter future for ourselves and for the entire human race. And the theme of TRTWorld Forum's this year's gathering consist of these very important aspects. A century ago, a new world order was established, and we're trying to transition to a new era. And in the in the wake of such discussions, I think our deliberations will be opening vast horizons ahead of us. But those who are so accustomed to thinking with the ways of the old establishment and considering the world order looking from the perspective of the old parameters will find themselves to be significantly disturbed. This is how you need to read the reactions coming from all around the world vis-à-vis the offensive peace spring initiated by the Republic of Turkey in the northern part of Syria in order to ensure border safety and security and in order to allow peaceful repatriation of the refugees back to their motherlands. However, it should be well known that countries cannot be shackled using terrorist organizations as vessels and instruments. It is no longer the time where the countries can be managed and administered illegitimately behind closed doors. Diplomacy cannot be used as instruments for pressure in the hands of the powerful nations. We have to understand the Western stance. Do you think the West was keen to prevail democracy in these parts of the world? No. We heard some weak voices and then we saw all the principles getting abandoned. Where would you find freedom of expression? Where would you find freedom of expression where the benevolent figures of freedom of expression are being attacked on a continuous basis? Unfortunately, I find that this world is failing to keep up with the demands of the nations and that the world is seemingly mute in the face of significant developments. They trust in their currencies, they trust in their dollars so that they can survive on their dollars. This has always been what they have been doing. So they are going to try to do the same thing because they have the dollars, they have the oil. This is their only way out. This is the only way out for them. I believe that those who believe in freedom of expression, those who believe in freedom of faith and religion, will never exchange their beliefs for those green banknotes, for those dollars whatsoever. It is no longer going to be the case where the nations can be administered and misled behind closed doors in obscurity. And as I said, diplomacy can never be used as a vessel for exerting pressure on weaker nations. It is the end of the crooked world order where all of the instruments, including coup d'etats, were used, claiming them to be legitimate till the end. Economic relations are the weakest link of the existing global political order, and they are converted into political weapons, leading to the demise of many nations. This is now time to bring an end to this mishap. We have been experiencing these facts in the last 6 years. We have paid a significant price, but we have shed a light on the misleading conduct pursued by the nations around the world quite clearly, and we have always been left alone in our strive for a better future. In the face of economic, diplomatic and political vandalism, we expected our friendly nations to embrace a principled stance, and this is leading to a very profound disillusionment and heartbreak. Other than a few limited countries and institutions, none of our friendly nations around the world embraced such a dignified stance to defend what we were there to defend in the first place. Every nation, regardless of their strength, if they fail to defend these principles and these virtues, are threatening their own future in the making.
teröristlerin yanında
Those nations are making a big mistake thinking that terrorism and problems deriving from irregular migration and refugee influx are concerning only us and nobody else, including the European countries. I thought they were against terrorism. And I wonder for how long they have been walking hand in hand with terrorists and terrorism. This is something I've been repeating continuously. These terrorist organizations, namely PYD and YPG, have they already become NATO members? And was I not aware of it? What kind of a business is this? What kind of a stagnation this is? But we need to sit together and we need to be sincere in fighting terrorism. And if you claim to be against terrorism, you need to prove your stance. Regardless of which meeting we attend internationally on terrorism, this is something that we need to hold people accountable for. We have to ask questions and expect answers. We have to state the fact that we have observed their togetherness with terrorist organizations, siding with the terrorists, and we have to hold them accountable in the face of their conduct. This is the break of a new dawn. This is something we need to do. This is a duty we have against the entire human race. Fighting terrorism and handling refugee influx will not be possible through erection of new walls and installing barbed wires. Instead, we need to walk hand in hand towards a brighter future. We cannot become introverts, and we cannot confine ourselves within the boundaries of prosperity, comfort, and security. This is a problem, this is a question for the entire human race, and it depends on which side of history we will stand. Are we going to stand in a dignified fashion with the prevalence of the human race in justice and inequality, or are we going to side with oppression and tyranny? It is unjust, it is quite selfish to dump this load over the countries who are bearing the burden of irregular migration and terrorism more than anybody else. And this stance can no longer be sustained. We are trying to benefit to the very end from the opportunities that avail themselves as a result of globalization, but at the same time we seem to ignore the problems and we seem to ignore the dynamics that are created through the aforementioned problems such as irregular migration and terrorism. This is the new world order that is on the rise, and we need to do something against this. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now rising up to the occasion in order to answer to the calls, not only in our region, but around the world. And we are using every capability that we have in order to extend a helping hand to those in charge. That's why, to those in need. That's why we say the world is greater than 5. That's why we are running from the Balkans to the Southeast Asia, from Syria to anywhere and everywhere else in Africa. That's why we want to see the reformation taking place in the United Nations in an unprecedented fashion, along with all the driving engines of the global arena and all the other organizations. Whatever we want for ourselves, we want for the rest of the human race, because we are Turkey, because we are one of the most powerful representatives of the ancient heritage of the entire human race. We are here to build, we are here to let live, and we are here to mend the broken hearts, and we are here to resurrect ages-old civilizations that we share. We expect the same stance, the same principled attitude from our countries, our neighborly and friendly countries from around the world. And we need to base the new world order on the foundation of principles, virtue, and reform. We need to reform the Security Council of the United Nations, whereby all of the temporary seat holders will also have a strong say. Most countries are racing in order to become a temporary seat holder, but I don't think it would matter much at the end of the day, because all they will be able to do is to raise their hands up in the air and say a few words which will remain unheard, because everything depends on those 5 permanent seat holders of the Security Council. If they say yes, things will roll on. If they say no, everything will come to a screeching halt. This is the reform that we all have to undertake. This is no longer the world of the post-First World War era. That's why we need to transform and transition and shed the skin. The new world order cannot be based on the suffering and the oppression of the nations. That's why we need to embrace this will towards a brighter future. Under these circumstances and in this landscape, I think all of the issues that we shall discuss for the next 2 days under the auspices of the TRTWorld Forum will encompass significant challenges that we are all trying to come out of in a dignified and a successful fashion. We have our dreams that we need to realize, and our ideas and our opinions need to be elaborated at the utmost extent possible so that we can all win and enjoy the break of a new dawn. We have one request from those who are ignoring our stance, our expectations, our concerns, and our inspirations. Please do not listen to the dynamics of Turkey and the suffering of Turkey from other people. Just listen to our stories from us. That's what we want. Don't listen to the misleading columnists. Please do not value us according to the statements and the allegations of our adversaries. Please come here and witness the dynamics in Turkey and experience what's going on out there on the streets. And please shed aside your preconditions, your prejudices, and your setbacks. Please be transparent and please be honest and integral to yourselves. Only then you will be able to see that we have a lot to share. And only then these platforms of this scale will be a very important opportunity for us to hear one another. The opinion leaders, the policymakers, the representatives of common sense and social conscience, such as yourselves, will help us explore these opportunities altogether, and I would like to thank each and every one of you for your contributions. I hope and pray that this forum will be very healthy and will be very fruitful for every one of us. And I would like to congratulate TRT for their devoted actions in the realization of this forum, especially going through this difficult patch in time. I would like to salute you all with love and respect. We are going through a break in our offensive in northern parts of Syria, lasting for 120 hours. That's why this is an important time. 120 hours is almost over. Tomorrow, we will be traveling to Sochi in Russia, where we will get together with President Putin of Russia, and we will talk about this process and then take the necessary steps forward. God willing. I would like to salute you all and greet you all respectfully. And I also would like to thank the Turkish nation and the entire human race who are watching us on their TVs at home. May you remain in full peace and full health.
Sayın Cumhurbaşkanım, size kısa bir süre daha sahnede ağırlayabilsek. Sayın İbrahim Eren.
Mr. President, we would like to ask you to cordially remain on the podium, and we would also...
You've been listening there to the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan speaking at the opening of the TRTWorld Forum, and he's just receiving their commemorative gift from Ibrahim Eren, the Director General of TRT. And the President has made many points in his speech that need to be put into focus. And for that, let's bring in TRTWorld's Shamim Chowdhury, who's been listening in from the venue. Shamim, a lot was discussed there by the president, of course, during this interesting timing during the offensive. What did you make of the points that he raised?
Well, I think clearly he made some very strong comments about Turkey's position as far as Operation Peace Spring is concerned. Many of those comments were directed, most would agree, towards the US. He was saying that to use the economy as a weapon, as a